Because I know the symbolic analysis paragraph is something new for most of you, I want to really challenge you to carefully read through the sample. I've put up the sample here on the screen, and you can find the link to the sample and the rubric in the lecture about symbolic analysis paragraphs and in the instructions for this draft. In the blue, you can see the claim and clincher. And the claim and clincher are vital because they set up the idea that what you're looking at is a cultural argument, that Morrison is using symbolism to make a cultural argument about agency, African American agency in America, and that she's not neutral about that. She's protesting injustices, she's celebrating the resistance and the agency of African Americans despite these circumstances. So we want to make sure that our claim and our clincher are clear about what Morrison's larger cultural argument is, so that then the bulk of the paragraph focuses on using literary device terminology as methods of interpreting symbolic language and how Morrison uses specific symbols to make specific observations about African American culture. Those ideas are laid out right here for you in the rubric, so please make sure you're reading over these criteria in the rubric: claim and clincher, methods of interpretation, and source integration. In other words, by source integration, we mean how are you taking short quotes from the novel, integrating them into sentences that interpret them. That kind of integration means that you're setting up short quotes, framing them with your own language, and then interpreting, explaining the meaning of those quotes. You want to avoid plopping big quotes and then explaining them after. You want to integrate the evidence with the interpretation of the evidence. That's the 200 level kind of work with source writing we want to do. And you can see lots of examples of that in the red sentences in this diagram, where you'll see again and again short quotes, words or phrases linked to symbolic terminology, and then explained and interpreted. Let's just take one quick example to look at it. The bargeman, we'll go right here. The bargeman refers to African Americans as, quote, animals, end quote, parentheses, 63, parentheses, a word that becomes a dehumanizing metonym, replacing what should be a sense of shared humanity with a dismissal of another human being as a beast of burden. So notice how that quote that integrates just one word and integrates that into a sentence that sets it up, and then has 15, 20 words interpreting the meaning of that word. Sometimes when you interpret language, you integrate it into a sentence like you see here, and then you spend several more sentences just unpacking that one word. So what we're talking about here is, sorry about that weird highlighting, what we're talking about here is how you are carefully presenting, integrating, and then fully interpreting and explaining symbolic language as you work through this paragraph. You're going to notice there's absolutely no plot summary in these paragraphs at all. There's no larger descriptions of characters. Everything is unpacking of symbolic words and what they mean and what they suggest. And if you look closely at this paragraph, you realize it pretty much literally unpacks two words. You have a 250-word paragraph interpreting two words. You're welcome to interpret more than two words, but obviously if you're throwing 10, 15, 20 words into this paragraph, there's no way you're going to fully interpret all of them. And what we want to do is focus on only the words we're actually going to interpret, only the words we're going to explain to our reader. So hopefully, supplemented by your very careful reading of the rubric and your own careful go through of the entire paragraph, claim, literary symbolic analysis, and clincher, You'll have a stronger sense of what you want to do before you start writing. It doesn't mean your draft is perfect, but it's going to mean that your draft starts in the right place and you don't spend a lot of time doing things you really don't want to do for this assignment.